Now, police officers incorrectly produced a custody sheet for an arrest that never actually happened. That's according to the father of a grooming gang victim.
Jack, not his real name, said that he was arrested twice in 2005 when trying to rescue his daughter from an abuse den in Rotherham. But a police custody record seen by GB News lists his address as a property that he did not live at until 2010.
Well, Jack exclusively spoke to our national reporter Charlie Peters and said that he believes this was an error made by the police as they retrospectively produced the custody sheet.
Charlie, thank you for coming in and explaining this. You have made this story your own. It's an incredible story. You've done an incredible amount of work. This sounds quite complicated. Explain exactly what's going on here.
So in 2005, Jack's daughter, Elizabeth, also not her real name, was being held in an abuse den for 10 weeks by gangs of men who were exploiting her. She'd been brought in there by a woman called Shafina Ali, a white woman who'd converted to Islam and essentially operated as the source of her exploitation, groomed her and then allowed her to be exploited by these men. Jack knew about this, and like many of the parents in Rotherham, he was doing all he could to free her. In this appalling scandal, so many parents have been blamed for their children's abuse. We've heard that they've come from broken homes or they were in care. It's not true of Elizabeth. Jack and Elizabeth's mother did everything they possibly could, like thousands of other parents. But unfortunately, according to them, the system let them down. So on one occasion, when he was trying to free Elizabeth from that flat, Jack says he was arrested twice. The first time, they de-arrested him at a nearby estate where he lived and said, don't go back. But of course he did, because it's his daughter. The second time, they say he was arrested again, this time because he was more irate. And we have seen a note from solicitors operating for South Yorkshire Police saying that this would have been legal in order to prevent a breach of the peace. Make of that what you will. Now, the complaint was made 10 years later when this scandal was exposed. It was not upheld by the Independent Office for Police Conduct because there wasn't sufficient record of this arrest. But there is a different arrest recorded on a custody sheet for being drunk and disorderly around the same time. However, Jack claims that never happened, and he points to some evidence on that sheet, which is that the address for the property he lived in was only there 5 years later in 2010. I was in Rotherham earlier and I produced this report.
Have you had a random call lately from a strange number, maybe trying to sell you something or even scam you? If so, your info could be out there. That's because of data brokers, shady companies that scrape the internet for your personal details and sell them to marketers or even scammers. These days, scammers can even use AI to mimic your friends' voices and trick you into sending money. It's not just annoying. Data brokers often target vulnerable people with high-interest loans or sketchy offers. But there is a solution. Incogni, the sponsor of this video. Incogni contacts data brokers on your behalf and requests your info be deleted from their databases. And because your data can keep popping up, Incogni keeps sending removal requests to make sure it stays gone. They've just launched a new unlimited plan with custom removals. If you find your info on a weird website, just send them the link and their privacy team will work to get it taken down. Getting started is easy. Hit the link in the description, create your account and let Incogni handle the rest. It's risk-free for 30 days and you'll get 60% off an annual plan with the code GBNews. Take back control of your data with Incogni.
With his daughter Elizabeth being kept in an abuse den for weeks and the police failing to act, Jack took matters into his own hands.
After keep informing them, it must have been hundreds of times, I just had enough. I went over to the flat, kicking off, swearing outside, shouting that I were coming in flat. Next minute, there were a police car pulled up, 2 police officers, arrested me. They pulled up on the street where I lived, told me I were de-arrested, get in house and don't go back to the flat. So I did, I went back in house, but by then, things were going round in my head, I'd lost it, kicking doors, shouting. I noticed, as I turned round, that there's a police van there, 2 men and a woman, put cuffs on me, said I were arrested, took me down to the police station.
But Jack says he was never booked in at the station. Instead, they held him there for a few hours before releasing him and telling him not to go back. This was 2005. Years later, when the Rotherham grooming gang scandal was exposed, Jack and his daughter made complaints about the incident to the Independent Office for Police Conduct. But when his complaint was dismissed, the police force's lawyers released a custody sheet alleging that he was arrested in 2005 for being drunk and disorderly at a different location. Jack claims that this account is false and that the custody sheet contains several errors.
They've got me down at an address I didn't live at until 5 years later, which had been 2010. They've also got me down at age 58. Well, I'm only in my early 60s now, so that'd have made this all happened 4 years ago. When in actual fact, date on this sheet is 2005.
Have you ever been arrested for being drunk and disorderly?
I was arrested once, day before my 18th birthday, for underage drinking.
But not in the 21st century?
No. No, it weren't, no.
What's your explanation for why this has happened then?
It's to stop me proving that I was arrested twice.
Jack now believes that the custody sheet was written retrospectively to cover up his arrests outside the abuse den. If it was written in 2005, the force would not have recorded his address from 2010.
Why do you think they arrested you in 2005 instead of rescuing your daughter?
Because they didn't want it to go public. As we all know about Rotherham, not just Rotherham, everywhere. Right? We were told we was the only family going through this. We reported it over 200 times, right? Over months. We were told, well, it's you and your wife's bad parenting because it's only happening to you. If these police officers are still in police force now, obviously they've moved up to higher positions and they're lying and making things up to cover what they've done. And it's wrong. As far as I'm concerned, they're in the same bed as the perpetrators because that's what they are. They're still aiding and abetting these people after 25 years.
This family is still waiting for justice, but now they fear that it might never be delivered. Charlie Peters, GB News, Rotherham.
Well, these allegations have sparked a quite fierce political reaction already. We've heard from the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp calling this a disgrace, and also the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has told GB News it's almost like it's getting worse. However bad we thought the grooming gang scandal was, it just got worse. This new evidence, he says, shows that Rotherham must be part of this upcoming national inquiry. People in Rotherham familiar with Jack's case have also spoken to me. Jane Senior, the Rotherham whistleblower who exposed the scandal over a decade ago, said this is another example of how the police failed in their duty to protect our children and listened to parents when they cried out for help. She said, I would expect an immediate investigation into how this happened and who appears to have falsified that document to be held to account. Well, we have had a response from the Independent Office for Police Conduct. A spokesperson told us that in June, we received a voluntary complaint referral from South Yorkshire Police, which included an allegation relating to concerns regarding a custody record of a family member. After assessing the matter, we decided that this complaint should be returned to the force for South Yorkshire Police to deal with the complaint as it deems reasonable and proportionate, noting that the allegation was similar to a previous complaint made by the complainant that had already been through the complaints process. And of course, the complainant has been notified of their decision. On that line there, very quickly, Dawn and Tom, you heard them say that this was similar to a previous complaint because Jack and Elizabeth did raise concerns, of course, with the IOPC, which formed part of Operation Linden. It took 7 years, that IOPC investigation. It investigated dozens of officers. 5 were found to be at fault. The harshest punishment given was a final written warning. Some of the examples of failure in that report are unbearable. The complaint about the arrest outside the den was not upheld due to a lack of evidence and insufficient understanding of the situation. However, in that statement you've heard there from the IOPC, they say the allegation was similar to a previous complaint made by the complainant. I don't think that's the case. I think what's being raised here is about a custody sheet about an arrest being wrong. It's quite separate from what's being said there. But either way, we have also had a statement from South Yorkshire Police, a spokesperson there saying that a complaint relating to a custody log was made to South Yorkshire Police, and we voluntarily referred this to the IOPC. As you've just heard, they've reviewed that and subsequently determined that this is a matter for SYP to manage. Now, they've said today, this morning, we have since determined that the matter should be investigated, and that investigation is now underway. And again, of course, the complainant has been notified of our decision to investigate. So, Dawn and Tom, this is the situation we're in now. Jack thinks that a document was falsified. The address is wrong. It's 5 years out of date. He thinks South Yorkshire Police is to blame for some degree. But South Yorkshire Police will be investigating their own officers there, their own team. And that's raised some additional concern from the family members and indeed lawyers close to them.
In how many cases have the people who have been accused been asked to investigate themselves? The councils investigating themselves, the police investigating themselves again and again. Charlie Peters, thanks so much for bringing us that story. I know you'll stay on it like a tenacious sort of canine.
Terrier is the word you're looking for.
Sort of canine.
Yes, yeah.
But it does make you wonder how many more Jack and Elizabeths there are out there.
That is so.
Thousands.
People still suffering, not getting the justice they deserve.
Well, shall we have